You ever feel like sometimes doing the thing that's right means going against God? I mean, sometimes like being a Christian isn't always the in thing to do. Sometimes you're just kind of by yourself, doing your own thing, following God. You're trying to do what's right, but everyone else seems to be doing everything else, and it's so hard to just be alone by yourself. Well, in the Old Testament, there was a man named Elijah, and he was a guy who was a prophet of God, and at that time, the rest of the country worshiped other gods, other people. There was this one other god this other religion that people worship is called Baal. And Baal was kind of like this false god that didn't really believe in anything. And so, well, Elijah said this, let's have a contest. Let's see who the real God is. So, all the prophets, all the pastors that believe in Baal, you come together and you build this fire. And I will come and I'll build my own fire. And what will happen is no one lights it, and we'll pray to our gods and see which God is the real God. See which God will light the fire. So all the prophets, all the pastors of Baal, they decided to come together and do this. And they decided to make this huge bonfire, but they didn't light it just like the rules said. And they started to pray. And the Bible says they started praying early in the morning. They started praying. And some people, they shout, praying, trying to get God's attention. Other people, they're being real quiet and they're just praying, fervently praying, because they're devoted people. And they prayed and prayed. So the prophets were trying to get Baal's attention so much that they decided to get really rowdy. And the Bible says they got so rowdy they decided to Baal wasn't listening to them. And so they decided they got out knives and they started cutting themselves just to get attention to Baal. And do you know people that do that? Who just try to get attention, they'll do anything just to get attention, even hurt themselves. It came to the point where Elijah was sitting there and he'd been there all day long. And he sat there and he's like, what's wrong? Is your God asleep? Maybe he's sleeping. Maybe you need to be louder. Maybe you should shout louder. And he just started making fun of you guys. Pretty much, it probably ticked them off. But finally, they gave up. And they decided that it was time for Elijah to have a turn. And Elijah decided, okay, I got to do this right. And he decided to build this altar, and he used 12 stones representing the 12 tribes of Israel. And he built this altar, put the wood on the fire, just like you said, and then he stopped and he goes, wait, before we get going, I want you guys to build a trench all the way around the altar. And so these guys came in, they dug this hole all the way around the altar, and everyone's going, what in the world is going on here? And they built this trench all the way around. And then he did something that sounds crazy. Sounds totally crazy. And I bet you all the prophets were going, what is this guy doing? All by himself, he's looking like a fool. And he said, I want some water. Bring me some water. Bring me 12 buckets of water. And so they brought 12 buckets of water, and he said, take these buckets of water and pour it on the fire. And they're like, what? And he goes, no, do it. Just so we know who the true God is, pour the buckets on the fire. After they had dumped water on this altar so much that the whole trench around it was full of water, Elijah sat there by himself with everyone watching, everyone thinking he was a fool. He knelt down and he prayed to God.